connection, through spiritual connection in community here at First Unitarian Rochester. So I'm going to ask this section if you'll read the first part that comes after listen, the middle section can take open, and if the last section over here will take serve. So please read it with me. Through spiritual connection in community, we listen deeply to others and ourselves, open to wonder and transformation, and we serve together in love and humility. Wonderful. All right. I'm getting notes from our music director. We need to do it even more enthusiastically. So once more, through spiritual connection in community, we deeply to ourselves and others, open to wonder and transformation, and serve together with love and humility. Woo! All right. Thank you all. We acknowledge with respect the Seneca Nation, keepers of the Western Door and part of the Haudenosaunee people on whose ancestral lands First Unitarian now stands. I am the Reverend A.J. Van Tyne, assistant minister here of this congregation. Leading worship with me this morning is Reverend Libby Moore. Brownlee Field is our worship associate. We have Tommy Snell, our music director, and Tim Farnham on guitar and vocals, and many, many ushers, greeters, volunteers, tech folks, a lot of people, many hands doing a lot of work to make Sunday morning possible, and we're grateful for all of them. We have two quick announcements. One is that if you are on the newer side to our community and you'd like to learn more about First Unitarian Church or more about Unitarian Universalism, please join us in the Susan B. Anthony Lounge after the service. It's out the doors just to the right for UU 101. And a very exciting announcement we have is about our Greater Good project and our Greater Good service. And so I'm going to invite up to the pulpit Jenny Gall to announce the winners of the project. The way this works is the youth and children of our community every year vote to select two organizations to be recipients of fundraising around our Greater Good service and our Greater Good project every year. So can we get a drum roll, please, as Jenny comes up to announce.
Thank you, Reverend AJ. Get to take my mask off. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I am so excited to let you guys know what the youth and children have chosen for our Greater Good project this year. It's going to be two wonderful programs. First, from the Friends of Ganondagan, The Edge of the Woods has been chosen. And the second program is through Keeping Our Promise, Driving for Change. So now we have a month, friends, to do such a simple thing of donating some money so people who have a vision can solve complex problems and make their vision true. That's a simple thing we can do of just donating some money. And that will culminate in December 12th, where we can give our donation, and then there will be time later on through the month of December and January to continue to donate. So again, I'm just thrilled to share the news, and we are also going to be following this Roots to, what's the theme again?
The theme for our service on December 12th, our Greater Good service, is Roots to Joy. Roots to Joy.
Isn't that a wonderful title, especially because there are two ways to spell roots? You get it?
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
It'll make a little more sense when you see the graphic and the logo for Roots to Joy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenny. Now I invite you into a deep breath as we light our chalice to begin our sacred time and our sacred worship together. Please join me in the words. May the flame we now kindle inspire us to use our power to heal with love, to help with compassion, to bless with joy, and to seek liberation in the fullness of community.
Morning. My wife and I are hikers. We like going hiking. Back when I retired a couple of years ago, we bought a camping trailer and a Jeep, and we go camping and hiking. I like to go to national parks and national forests, state parks, state forests, maybe Bureau of Land Management lands. And we go camping, and we've been on the road this fall for a couple of months, and we hiked over 100 miles. Now, a typical day of hiking, we'll get up early and make sure we get to the trailhead as early as possible. And we'll hike to maybe mid-morning and to the highlight of the trail, maybe a waterfall or a nice vista or a lake up in the mountains, or maybe even a chance to see some wildlife. And then we'll stop and have some of my wife's trail mix cookies. She makes very good. And then we'll turn around, come back. It might have been a loop trail and finish up the loop, or come back the same way we came because it's an in and out trail. And we're back to the Jeep and the trailhead by, lunchtime-ish, find a good place for a picnic lunch, have lunch, and then we're back in camp in the, early afternoon. So that's a typical day of hiking for us. Now, when we're hiking, we want to follow good trail etiquette, and that for us means to hike single file, because the trails are narrow and there's hikers coming the other way and want to pass, and we're not the fastest hikers in the world, and so there might be young folks that want to pass us by too. So it's always good trail etiquette to hike single file. It's not very conducive to long conversations with your hiking partner. But it does afford opportunity to think, to yourself a little more deeply about what's important to you. I'm often hiking in the forest, and the only sound is our footsteps, or maybe it's my bear bell ringing. So it's kind of meditative, and allows me to clear my mind of all of the things that occupy it and fill it during the day, and think a little more deeply about things that are really important to me. Maybe it's loved ones and their well-being, or hopes and dreams for the future. And just like hiking, isn't that why we come to church? Because here in this space and in this time, we get to calm down a little bit, settle our minds, push aside all of the things that seem to fill them during the week, and think about things that are really important a little more deeply. And that might be our loved ones and their well-being, or our hopes and dreams for the future for ourselves, for our loved ones, and for the world. See you on the trail.
Good morning. That was great, Tom. We have a reading this morning called The Facts of Life by an Irish poet named Padraig Ó Tuama. The facts of life: that you were born and you will die, that you will sometimes love enough and sometimes not, that you will lie if only to yourself, that you will get tired, that you will learn most from the situations that you did not choose, that there will be some things that move you more than you can say, that you will live, that you must be loved, that you will avoid questions most urgently in need of your attention, that you began as the fusion of a sperm and an egg of two people who were once strangers and may well still be. That life isn't fair, that life is sometimes good and sometimes better than good, that life is often not so good, that life is real, and if you can survive it well with love and art and meaning given where meaning is scarce, that you will learn to live with regret, that you will learn to live with respect, that the structures that constrict you may not be permanently constraining, that you will probably be okay, that you must accept change before you die, but you will die anyway. So you might as well live, and you might as well love. You might as well love. You might as well love. And that's the end of that reading. So I invite you now into a few moments of shared silence, which will begin our time of meditation and reflection. Spirit of life and love, beloved presence, great stillness, all that is, and that which we may call God, here we are. We gather this morning in our homes and in this sanctuary, certain that our being together weaves us more tightly into that interdependent web of life of which we are all a part. We gather with a multitude of thoughts and emotions, our hearts full in this sacred time and place. We gather with joy, our hearts warmed by the blazing colors of trees which are flaming out before their winter rest. We gather with gratitude, our hearts honoring the veterans whose day we celebrated this past week. Their service is worthy of our respect and remembrance. We gather with heartbreak, our hearts aching for people known to us and unknown, people who have died too soon, and those who are struggling with loss or illness or the deep sadness of disconnection. We gather with righteous anger, our hearts alive to voices crying out for justice and compassion for all beings, for those who have been oppressed and those who have not been seen as being worthy of our care. We honor our oneness with all beings, those nearby and those distant from us. We are one with all living creatures, with animals and birds and fish and plants and trees and oceans and rivers. We are one with the earth itself. May our presence here be a blessing to all that is. We'll enter now into a silent ritual of prayer and reflection. I invite you to begin by taking a moment to reflect on whatever sorrows are weighing your heart or whatever joys are lifting you up. Name for yourself a person or a prayer or a wish that you want to bring to the altar of this community. And now, if you're online, type your prayer into the chat so that we can share it. And if you're in the sanctuary, come to one of the side altars. Take a stone from the bowl and hold it gently. Hold it thinking of your prayer or of the person you want to hold up. And then place the stone in the bowl of water, where it will be held with love by this entire community. In silence now, we share our prayers and wishes and hopes. It is good to be together, friends, to know that we are not alone with all that we carry in our hearts. We know that our love, our compassion, our hope are made stronger by this loving community. We know that we are held by a larger love which will not let us go. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.
the sun shine down on my head till moonlight shines on me again. Today let me hum, today let me run, the spinning earth under my feet, and let me hold loosely the dream of my life to welcome the changes I meet. It's enough to live, and I'm grateful. It's enough to live, enough. Today let me see, not just with my eyes, and make my mistakes without shame. Today let me, today let my heart beat steady and strong, and death not come calling my name. Today let me love, today let me laugh, remembering where I have been. And if I weep, still let me find peace, keep with me till journey's end. It's enough to live, and I'm grateful. It's enough to live, enough. It's enough to live.
All that a community has, all that a community is what we bring to it. Our time, our talents, our treasures, all combine to create all that our church does for ourselves and for others. Each week, we give an offering from our bounty that we are blessed to receive to support the work and witness of Unitarian Universalism in Rochester. As part of the spiritual practice of generosity, we split our plate collection each week to support work of justice and caring in our community. This week, half our collection will support our church's work with Family Promise of Greater Rochester. They assist families at risk of or experiencing homelessness to achieve sustainable independence, normally a sort of rotating church shelter. In the pandemic, they have been sheltering families in rented apartments instead, and member congregations have participated by making rotations to help feed the families in the program. You're encouraged to give online at our website, the donate, or links are provided in the chat. In person, you can put money in the boxes, offering boxes in the aisleways. In the spirit of abundance and generosity, the offering will now be given and humbly received. Thank you.
He was a man and a friend always. He stuck by me in the hard old days. He never cared if I had no dough. We'd ramble around in the rain and snow. And here's to you, my rambling boy. May all your rambling bring you joy. And here's to you, my rambling rambling boy. May all your rambling bring you joy. In Tulsa town, we chanced to stray. We thought we'd try to work one day. The boss says he's got room for one. Says my old pal, we'd rather bum. And here's to you, my rambling boy. May all your rambling bring you joy. And here's to you, my rambling boy. May all your rambling bring you joy. Late one night in a hobo camp, the weather it was cold and damp. He got the chills and he got 'em bad. And they took the only friend I had. And here's to you, my rambling boy. May all your rambling bring you joy. And here's to you, my rambling boy. May all your rambling bring you joy. He left me here to ramble on. My rambling pal is dead and gone. If when we die we go somewhere, I'll bet you $1 he's rambling there. And here's to you, my rambling boy. May all your ramble bring you joy. And here's to you, my rambling boy. May all your rambling bring you joy.
Once upon a time, or perhaps many times in many ages, there was a prince born in a beautiful palace. The child was raised in luxury, and every painful or sad thing about life was banned within the palace gates by his parents' royal decree. And the child was never allowed to leave. But why would he? Why would he want to? Every delicious food, every worldly delight was brought inside the palace walls, even as guards kept the poor, the hungry, the sick, and the dying well out of sight. Eventually, the child grew into an adult, married and has children of his own, and lived in blissful ignorance of things like disease and death. But then, one fateful day, as it often happens, and perhaps through the intervention of the gods, or perhaps simply because all attempts to cover up the truth and the facts of life inevitably have cracks in them. So on this fateful day, the prince saw the first of 4 visions. First, an elderly beggar made it past the guards, and so the prince learned that old age awaits everyone. The next day, a sick, diseased person made it into the palace, and the prince learned that health and being able-bodied is only a temporary condition. The third day, when someone within the palace had died, the guards were not quick enough to remove the body, and the prince saw a corpse and learned that death is the inevitable fate for all. On the fourth day, he glimpsed outside the walls of the palace an ascetic monk walking and praying and meditating. Disillusioned by his upbringing and the denial of suffering and death that his life had provided so far, and inspired by seeing this alternate path, the prince ran away from home and took up the spiritual life, hoping to find a solution to the problem of suffering. This, as you may know, is the going forth narrative, attributed to many sages, but most famously to the Buddha. The myth describes the palace as, the myth describes a mind in denial, the palace being a metaphor for this mind, in denial about the suffering inherent in life. And the myth describes the turn, perhaps an inevitable one, towards facing the facts of life and embarking upon a spiritual practice, a spiritual path to make sense of it all. As the Reverend Forrest Church has said, religion is our human response to the dual reality of being alive and having to die. One thing that strikes me about this archetypal myth is that it is not a story of one person by their own powers hiding away from the suffering and death and being in denial completely by their own powers. But actually, this level of denial requires an entire community, an entire orchestration of society to perpetuate this illusion of deathless enjoyment. It makes me wonder about the palaces of illusion that exist around me and around us all. As an individual trying to live in America, I can't help but think of capitalism with its dependence on the illusion of perpetual growth and expansion, so core to much of our nation's exploitative history and present. So much of our popular culture worships youth and abhors aging and tries to cover it up. So much of our economics assumes constant growth. So much of our energy production and usage ignores the limits of physics and ecology, which cannot be changed. And we are beginning to feel the pushback as the impacts of global climate change affect us now. So much of our politics assumes that America is, must be, and will always be center stage in world affairs. Are these not all versions of seeking immortality, of assuming it, for hoping for immortality at the very least? Are these not versions of denying the reality of death, the reality that all things have limits and must come to an end? And is not the fear of the reality of death just the fear of the reality of limits? That we cannot actually do anything and everything that we want to forever? That we, in fact, are impacted by the actions and choices of others, and that our actions and choices impact others as well? And that therefore we have limitations to acknowledge. We have boundaries to respect. We have responsibilities. There are consequences to our actions. Take the denial of COVID-19. The pandemic is perhaps the greatest reminder of our interconnectedness and of our mortality, of the limitations both on us individually and collectively. And a huge portion of our country either denies that the pandemic is actually that bad, or denies the suggestion that it implies that we might need to limit ourselves and act differently. We live in a death-denying culture. And I think an antidote to that is a spirituality which embraces and affirms our mortality, accepting the limits of our existence. It is often said how Unitarian Universalism, rather than focusing on any afterlife, which we may or may not experience, we focus on this life instead, and this world, this earth. And yet we do not focus on this life that we are living now to the neglect of this death. If we are truly to affirm our time on earth, if we're truly to affirm this life, I think we must also affirm our deaths and how we will then respond to the fact of such mortal limitation. What would affirming your mortality mean for you? For me, it leads me to savoring life, and if I may share a Van Tyne family saying, to never delay joy. Affirming my own mortality challenges me to leave the best mark on the world that I can, doing my part to pick up the work of social justice and improving society from previous generations, and doing things as best as I can to leave them better than I found them, but knowing that I will not complete the work myself. Affirming my own mortality reminds me that all that I am is a limited expression of a larger universe. My very being, both physical and spiritual, is a local, limited, space and time-bound manifestation of an eternal and infinite and expansive universe, or perhaps a universe which will at some point collapse in on itself. We do not know the ultimate end, but when I am most centered and grounded in the truth of my own limitations, my own place in the grand timeline of the universe, then I feel most alive. I feel most interconnected to others that I love and others that I don't even know, and the life that we all collectively share and savor together. And I can prepare for my own time to end and face my own death whenever that may come.
So, in a few weeks, I turn 77 years old. It's older than I ever thought I would be. My family died young, I'm afraid. It's well into the second half of my life, maybe even the third half. And I'm still learning what it means to be mortal and to savor life. Father Richard Rohr, the Franciscan writer and teacher, says that in the first half of life, the questions we work on have to do with success and security and looking good to others and ourselves. We're building an identity, a container, and it's necessary and valuable work. But the work of the second half of life is finding the contents of this container, understanding who we really are, finding meaning in this life that we share. We learn to live with our imperfections. We learn to find beauty in life as it is, to grow into understanding that our questions don't have yes or no answers. Life is not an either-or proposition, thinking about death or savoring life, but both and. We know that we are mortal and that we will die. It is a fact of life, as the poet said. And we also know that life, as it is worth living. There's a Buddhist meditation that guides us toward this understanding. It goes something like this. If I know that death is certain, but the time of my death is uncertain, how then shall I live? Aging, as I well know, comes with inevitable losses. Some major, like the loss of those we love dearly, our friends and family, contemporaries, and people too young to die. Some losses are smaller, more incremental, our ability to see or hear, or to climb stairs, or remember names, or what it is we came into this room to get. Our spiritual task as we grow older is to accept the reality of what is, to become more compassionate to ourselves and to others, to learn to live with loss and to let go of what no longer serves. And as we do, we discover that what truly matters in our lives. Some years ago, and because I'm old, I can't remember how many years, but there was a workshop at this church, and I know several of you who are here in this room came to the workshop. It was called Facing Your Own Death, Facing Our Own Death. It included an exercise that asked us to choose 5 things that we loved, 5 objects, and 5 activities that we loved, and 5 people we loved. And we put them down on little cards. And then we were guided through a visualization of receiving a diagnosis, a terminal diagnosis, and step by step, moving closer to death. And at each step, we were asked to let go of one thing and one activity and one person. And for me, letting go of the stuff was easy. I mean, it is really easy to let go of stuff. Letting go of physical capacity was a little more difficult. Letting go of the people was impossible. The idea of having to choose who wouldn't accompany me in my final days was agonizing. Thankfully, it's a task I don't have to face just now. What this exercise clarified for me is that I find meaning in loving people and being loved in return. My 14-year-old grandson, who wraps me in a fierce bear hug whenever I come to his house and whenever I'm leaving. My 4-year-old granddaughter, who is puzzling out how I can be part of her family if I don't live with them. My cat, who hates being picked up, but every morning comes running in so I can rub her head with my toes. It's our morning ritual. And beyond individuals, I love this earth, our home, with its spectacular beauty and diversity of life and plants and trees and oceans and mountains. I know that I will die, and yet life itself is infinite. The facts of my one life are that I'm mortal and that my life has sweetness and beauty along with sorrow and loss. As the poet says, you might as well live, and you might as well love. You might as well love. You might as well love. May it be so, and amen.
gone by. It's a hard thing to think of the times to come, but the grace to accept every moment as a gift is a gift that is given to some. What can you do with your days but work and hope and let your dreams bind your work to your play? What can you do with each moment of your life but love till you've loved it away? Love till you've loved it away. There are sorrows enough for the whole world's end. There are no guarantees but the grave. And the life that I live and the time I have spent are a treasure too precious to save. What can you do with your days but work and hope and let your dreams bind your work to your play? What can you do with each moment of your life but love till you loved it away? Love till you loved it away. As it was, so it is, as it is, shall it be, and it shall be while lips that kiss have breath. Many waters indeed only nurture love's seed, and its flower overpowers the shadow of death. What can you do with your days but work and hope and let your dreams bind your work to your play? What can you do with each moment of your life but love till you've loved it away? Love till you've loved it away.
Please join me now in the words to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Beloveds, there are no guarantees but the grave. We are all born and we all die. May we affirm our mortality and savor all that is our lives, because we might as well live and we might as well love till we've loved it away. Go in peace. Blessed be.